Hello, welcome to the Chosen Companion series. My name is Mike from Showboys, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend James from the nerdybible.com. How are you doing tonight?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Good. I don't know if you noticed, but I caught myself because even though I said before we started recording that I wasn't going to introduce this as the Showboys like I accidentally did last week and had to restart, um, I still almost did it. It's like
It's natural.
muscle memory at this point. It's like anytime there's a microphone in front of my face and I'm looking at StreamYard, then the first words I say are "Welcome to Showboys." But we did it. We made it through. Here for episode 4 of The Chosen. I don't know if you guys video versions caught that. I forgot to change the background, but I did it right when I said episode 4. So you're welcome.
Wait,
That
what?
was totally intentional. Don't worry about it. You didn't notice,
Okay,
so it doesn't
good.
matter. Yes, if you're new here to the series, this is a companion series to listen along as you watch The Chosen, which is a series that is um, a a dramatization of the life and ministry of Jesus. So what we do, we go through, we watch. We've already watched the show. This will be my second time. I don't know how many times James has watched it.
42.
42. Yeah,
Yeah.
good number. Quite a few times. But we're going through. We're watching each episode. And then we're coming immediately after watching the episode, coming onto the computer here and recording our reaction and breakdown of each episode. It's been really fun. This is covering episode 4. So thank you for joining us.
You're
James, you
welcome.
were telling me that you're about to launch a new series on your website, and you wouldn't tell me what it was about until we started recording. So
Yeah.
please tell me.
No, so it's actually pretty exciting about this. Or I'm excited about this. One of the things that I got into the Nerdy Bible is because I am I'm trained in science, right? I mean biology and physics and stuff. So I have always wanted to parallel the two of been like, okay, so here's scientists and here's faith. Like they actually do somewhat intersect.
Hmm.
Like I'm not saying like the Bible tells you anything about science. It's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that a lot of scientists had faith in whether there's a lot of different religions that they've had faith in. So I am launching a little series, and every week I'm going to introduce a new scientist and explain his life, his science, and his faith or her.
Ah,
Sorry,
nice.
that was like horrible. I did his, and there are a lot of amazing women in science. So,
Nice.
um, so I think I said he because the first week it's already done. I haven't posted anything or anything, and I'm thinking of the scientists that
Yes,
I
yes,
did.
yes.
But so you know what? It is safe to say that I can announce it because it'll be posted by then. So I did James Clerk Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a pretty
So
rad dude.
yeah, so
I
I
don't know who that is,
yeah.
but I'm sure he's
He did
cool.
a lot of work in electromagnetism early on in
Nice.
like the 1800s, and so a lot of modern electrodynamics is built on his theories. Like I have not gone through any class in that has not like beat you over the head with his 4 equations. So no, it
Nice.
was good though. So yeah, I'm just excited about it. I'm excited to do that. So I did started searching, and there are so many. Like it is unbelievable how
Nice.
many that like were involved in their churches and societies and different. It was actually eye opening. I didn't even know there was this many. So
That's awesome.
this is gonna go on for like 15 years. No,
Hey,
but
there you
I'm
go,
gonna
man.
try to get into like, including like videos and stuff, like actually teaching some of the science of that. And like,
Oh,
so there's
nice.
gonna be a lot of cool things. I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm no scientist myself, but the little college that I went through,
Mhm.
I was going for physical therapy, so I had to take a lot of anatomy, biology classes. And excuse me, when I was in school, I was, you know, maybe 5 years into my walk with Jesus. Um, but like just one, like learning the things that I learned just in lecture and like textbooks and stuff is mind blowing, just about the body and like how intricate everything is and how
Mhm.
perfect like everything has to be for our bodies to function, for reproduction to like have, for birth and like the creation of new humans, like how the the way all of that works is just
Mhm.
literally mind blowing. And as a Christian going through all of that, it was just like super eye opening and like kind of wondrous,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that just like was multiplied by 100 when I got into lab and worked with cadavers and like,
Yep.
which sounds really gross.
No, it's not. I
And
mean,
it kind of is a
I've
little
done it.
gross,
It's
but dude, okay, there is nothing like being elbow deep in a chest cavity and just being like, there's no way that this was not like perfectly designed by a
it's
creator, you know?
yeah,
It's just
dude.
there's no way that I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack from this, so go ahead. The comments are good for the algorithm, so please comment how big of an idiot I am, but
Oh
or
yeah,
how
don't
hot of a take this is going to be. But like,
what? Just
I
because
can't see that and then like just be like, yeah, this all totally happened because two rocks slammed into each other and exploded, and magically, like, there's this perfect
y-
like environment to create something so intricate as life.
yeah, I think
That
science in
was a really
general
hot take.
just
Sorry. So
no, that's I think it is eye-opening. I mean, especially I did a lot of my studying in cosmology and astrophysics and stuff and biology too. So like I have at one point I could tell you every single portion of a body and how it works and all the systems function and then you go into cosmology and space and stuff like it's just it's mind blowing. I mean, did you know that the Big Bang theory was discovered or coined by a Jesuit priest? You know what I mean? So you have like these different things. Like it's just that is what led me to faith. It wasn't really like it wasn't a church. It wasn't a preacher. It wasn't friend that was going to church. It was like my years of studying science. So I completely feel you there. It's mind blowing to think like I mean even on a cellular level like
yeah,
what is
it's nuts.
happening it is I mean and the amount of changes that a body goes through as it's developing and it's nuts
Yeah,
and like it's just it's mind blowing so
and
no
that's
I
super interesting that you came from that background and it led you to God.
mhm.
Um, because you don't hear that very often, or at
No
least
you
I
don't
don't hear that
you
very
don't well
often.
and then on top of it I feel like as I get um older, I get grumpier. No, I don't know if that's a thing. No,
Oh,
but
it's
I
definitely a thing because
no,
I'm a
I
grumpy man.
I get upset I get upset when I hear all these people. Like, it's like how many times I've heard somebody and they're like, "Well, you know, science." And I'm like, "What?" Like, that's not it. That's first off, saying the word science is not an argument. But like, you know, I just I hear these just arguments filled with like fallacies and just like almost as if they read some headline in a tab in the news and was like, "Well, see this," and you're just like, "That doesn't you don't even know what you read. You don't even know like what like I mean, at least if you're gonna argue, like argue it." You know, like argue to some like I feel like I've heard a lot of atheists talk and I listen one of my life goals is to I heard the well, I'm running out of time, but I heard you ever hear the Bill Nye and Ken Ham arguments? Um
I've heard of them, I've
yeah,
never watched them.
I'm like looking at these people and I'm like, I want to argue with both of you. Like, these are both ridiculous right now. Like, and so I don't know. I feel like that's what led me to this nonprofit and stuff, is like seeing these people in both camps. Like, dudes never read a Bible, dudes never read a science book, and now they're debating about
Why
and
the
it's
other
just,
person's wrong.
yeah. And then there's a crazy guy over here that's saying like he read in Genesis that this is what's going to happen with whatever, and now it's like science, and you're just like,
Yeah.
no, like it's just there's so much issues, there's so
Yeah.
many issues with it that I love to tackle as I get
Yeah.
into my gray-haired days.
And then there's here's the last point, then we'll get into the actual episode.
Yeah, sorry, we got a rant.
But then you had the whole other topic of people who just discredit the other because they're on one side. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like I believe in God, so like nothing in science can be true or like factual
Yeah.
or support God. And then from the other side of the spectrum, like, no, like I don't believe in God. I believe in science, and like this all just randomly happened by chance, and all of a sudden, like, here we are.
Yeah,
It's like
and
like in my mind, like you can't really have one without the other.
exactly, and that's one of the things that I'm focusing. The whole goal of doing the scientist thing is never to really like talk about the science or talk about the faith. It's the fact of like, a lot of the arguments I've heard is like, these scientists like Isaac Newton, he was just in a different era, right? Like he was more susceptible to the ideals of Christians and stuff. And it's like, no, dude, that is incredibly insulting to the person that developed some of the earliest complex ideas in like gravitation, and even he predicted light as being particles well before we even understood what. So like when you look at these people that are incredibly intelligent and you like say like, oh, they're just different area, it's like insulting to who they are, and like, oh, like they didn't put enough thought into the, like, you're just, it's just not fair. And I think it angers me.
Yeah.
So
But thanks for coming to our TED Talk about science.
yeah, right. So what are we, like 30 minutes in?
Yeah. One final thing. This will not go any further than this, but I don't know if you noticed, but I was able to match my lights almost to the
I
green.
see it.
I tried my best, and I think it looks pretty cool.
Well,
But
and anyone that's not watching, you just got this whole feng shui thing going on here. He's got a candle. He's got Bulbasaur sitting by the candle. He's wearing a Reptar sweatshirt. He's got Christmas.
I don't know if you know
sweatpants
Bulbasaur's
on.
name here, but
Bulby.
if you're a frequent viewer of Showboys, this is Bulbo Baggins.
Bulbo Baggins.
Yeah, this is what I nickname all my Bulbasaurs in Pokemon games. Bulbasaur is my favorite Pokemon. Yeah. And yes, I'm wearing my podcasting uniform, which are my flannel jammies and some sort of awesome.
I never
hoodie.
showed you. I'll show you for all the list watchers. I got my pops over on. They're just not behind me because I'm a nerd and I put a giant whiteboard there.
Yeah, I like it. I like it though. Like the lighting. All right, let's get into the episode. This is episode 4 of season 1.
We'll just delete the first 20 minutes.
Oh no. It's good stuff. Episode 4 here of season 1. It is called "The Rock on Which It Is Built." This came out April 2019. Of course, Dallas Jenkins, also Ryan Swanson and Tyler Thompson. So here's the summary here, and then we'll just go through the episode and give our thoughts and opinions and things. At the Sea of Galilee, Simon misleads the Romans to save fellow Jews from being caught. Quintus suspects Simon of duplicity and sends Matthew to follow him. Shmuel, I hate saying his name, but that's my favorite student of Nicodemus. He tells Nicodemus about a baptizer on the Jordan River. Running from the Jordan, Andrew claims to Simon they are saved, and his rabbi, John the Baptizer, has identified the Lamb of God. But Simon prepares to fish. Andrew, Zebedee, Big James, and John arrive to help, but they catch nothing. In the morning, they see someone teaching a crowd on the shore. Andrew recognizes the teacher as Jesus, who asks to preach from their boat. After the sermon, Jesus tells Simon and Andrew to cast their nets. Suddenly, many fish appear, and they catch enough to pay off their debts. Simon surrenders himself to Jesus, and inviting Simon and Andrew to become fishers of men, Jesus also calls Big James and John. Witnessing the miracle, Matthew is shocked by its impossibility. Meanwhile, Nicodemus visits the imprisoned John the Baptizer to ask about miracles. So yes, picking up from episode 3, which was, as we kind of uncovered as the episode progressed last week, the introduction of the character Jesus, his true introduction in the series here. Following that episode, we are back to kind of the main storyline we've been following so far in the season, and that is Simon and his massive tax debt, Simon and Andrew, and their plot to kind of erase their debt with Quintus by turning in their fellow Jews who have been fishing on Shabbat. So the episode opens up with Simon on a boat with some Roman guards, and he is supposed to be leading them to these fishermen who are illegally fishing on the Shabbat. And instead, mid sail or row, I should say, he has a change of heart. They come across a set of wooden bobbers, which were kind of cool to see. And as he's like inspecting them, he notices there's a marking on the one he's looking at. And I watch, well, I think they show this even without subtitles on, but it's the letter Z. And that means something to Simon. You can see it kind of like him thinking through this process, starting to kind of feel a little guilt that he's, basically hunting down his fellow Jew, who are just trying to get by, kind of like he is. So he has like a change of heart here, and instead of leading the Romans to the fishermen, he instead leads them into a sandbar, which I thought was kind of funny. But on your first watch, did you kind of pick up what the marking on the bobber meant to Simon? I didn't even like most of the way through this episode until later on. I think I figured out what it meant, but
usually I'm really good at picking up on those details, and I didn't even pick up on it this time. That it had a Z on it.
Yeah, so I was like, what is the importance of Z, right? Like, it's so random. But then I remembered, like, later on, we see Simon, he meets with Andrew, or no, Andrew, but he meets with Zebedee, Big James, and John. And I think the Z on the bobber here is Zebedee, like it's his bobber, his net that has been cast. So like the meeting there in the tavern, he's basically like, look, I was basically chasing you with some Romans, and instead of leading them to you, which we were right on your tail, I did you all a solid and crashed the boat instead, as a way, like we'll get to this point later on, or we can just go there right now. But he tells them of his plan to turn them in to pay off his debt, and he's like, but being the good guy that I am, instead of leading them to you, I wrecked the boat, so you're welcome. Like thinking that's gonna make everything okay.
Everything better.
But yeah, I think the Z, it was Zebedee's net that he came across, but it's not super important, but just something I noticed here on the second watch. But like, what'd you think of Simon's change of heart here? Did this scene like really mean anything to you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like it was not predictable, but like he almost seemed to have like a connection with them in the first place. So it's like, to me, I don't know, maybe that's like maybe not a flaw in the story, but like he already seems, somewhat connected to her. So it's almost like it's not like he's just, giving up his own people. He's like giving up like
friends,
or even at the
like
least like a
acquaintances.
coworker, or
Yeah,
like somebody that's like an acquaintance is probably a better word than a
yeah,
coworker,
yeah.
but so um yeah, I think Peter does dumb things, but like I was trying to think of a better way to say that, but no, that's about all I can say with that. And I think we get that from scripture, and they're just not well thought out.
Yeah.
That's what. And so this, I think, when you're on a boat slowly going through the water, you have more time to think. And I think
Yeah.
that he is finally like, you know what,
Yeah.
um
I
I
thought it was interesting that kind of what like triggers that like thought process to happen is, he's like, they find the bobbers. The Romans are like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Bobbers, you idiots." But then the guard's like,
Romans.
"Yeah, yeah, that was great." But the guard's like, "Ah, good job." And then he's like, "Wait, dang it!" Like my nemesis just told me I'm doing a good job because I'm helping them. Like, what the heck am I doing? At least that's kind of what I thought there. But basically, the majority, I would say, probably like 90% of this episode is just following Simon and
Mhm.
dealing with this problem. So I don't think really the episode, like our episode, will be super long because we're just mainly talking about Simon here.
Well, I
Um,
wouldn't go that far. I mean, we were already 30 minutes in.
well,
we
that is
haven't even
true.
started.
Um, and there, even though we're just following Simon, like there's kind of a lot that happens with Simon here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he wrecks the boat. The guards get angry, of course. They, bring him on shore, cut his ear, and they're like, we're being kind to you because if Quintus was here, that dude's a savage. I think they literally say, like he's savage or something
Mhm.
along those lines. Um, and basically like, hey, if you do this again, like I think the guard says something like I can buy like a couple more days or a week, or basically I can
Yeah,
hold Quintus off for a little bit for you, but bro, like you're really like
you're
playing
on
with
thin
fire
water.
here.
Yeah.
uh so he realizes that he's in trouble, and he devises a new plan that Andrew thinks is pretty silly, like most of Simon's plans so far. But here we go to the scene in the tavern with Zebedee, Big James, and John, where he's basically like, "I was going to turn you guys in. I realized it was you and not like some random fisherman. And I did you a solid. I didn't turn you in. You're welcome. How about you help me by giving me all of your fish?" Basically. And that's his plan. And it's a really dumb one because they're, of course, rightfully pretty angry with Simon. Um, and on top of that, they're like, I can't like take that away from the people who fish
Mhm.
for me, because that would also be kind of a loser move. Um, so we find Simon's in hot water later. He goes back home, and his wife is, talking with her two brothers. He finds out that their mother, or his mother-in-law, is sick and is now living with him. So basically, Simon's whole world is like falling apart here. Like he's in massive debt with his oppressors, and his mother-in-law now lives with him. So it's like literally like everyone's worst nightmare. Um, I'm just kidding. I love my mother-in-law. She's awesome. Uh, his wife is really ticked at him, about him being upset about her mother being there and being sick, but also like he tells her the truth, comes clean, like, look, we're in big trouble here, and she kind of like hits him with some hard truths here, like, where's your faith? Like, even before this, like, you have been kind of stumbling, or I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he hasn't been staying true to his faith. He hasn't been pursuing God. He hasn't, he's been, I take it as going through the motions, or maybe not even going through the motions. And then acting surprised. They're like, why is all this happening? Like, why can't I do this myself? But I really liked the scene there with his wife, even though, okay, I know I've been rambling, but here's my last point. I'll let you talk. A larger thing across the episode, you do see some of those like kind of too on the nose, borderline cheese moments in some of the dialogue. There's a little bit here where it's getting close to being like, okay, like you don't have to like literally 1000% like spell it out on the nose. Like you can, there's a part like that with Nicodemus and the Pharisees talking about John the Baptizer, which we'll talk about when we get to that point. But anyways, the floor is yours, sir.
I mean, I don't have much to say on that. I loved my favorite part of this scene was when he's like, I have it kind of on in the as I'm looking back at this dialogue as you bring it up, but he's like, I'm not talking to your sisters or your sister right now. I'm talking to my wife in my house. I will beat you with both my bare hands if you don't get out of my house right now. I just think it's so funny because it's such that like that Peter moment. No, I really like, honestly, this is probably my favorite episode so far in the season. And it's because of Peter. I think it's just, I don't know if I think we're about to go into hit the next scenes with Peter, but like, I just really like, I feel like the character traits that you get from him from reading the Bible. When I first came to my faith, like, I feel like I was so enthralled with Peter. And like, because I'm like, oh, that's me. Like, I'm so like Peter. I'm just so like, I feel like I was hot headed. I was like quick to act. I was very like, and I'm still all those at some point. I think we all have that capacity, but like, I feel like he's so relatable to me. And so as we proceed and continue to talk about future scenes with him, like, I'm like, that's so me. It's crazy. I don't know. I can relate to him in this so much. And so, I guess I'm more excited to talk about the few things here in the few next scenes. But no, I thought these were, you said this was your favorite scene of you really like this scene or
no, it's just, I was just going through.
Okay.
I do like the next interaction though, as Simon is going outside and prepping his fishing stuff, and Andrew comes like winded up, and he's just like, Simon, I saw him, and basically he's like, what's Simon saying? Would you run from Jerusalem or something? Like, I love like the like sarcastic, like,
did you run all the way from Jerusalem is what he said.
Yeah. It's great. I got
we're saved. He's like,
but basically Andrew's coming from the Jordan, being with John the Baptizer, and he saw Jesus, and John is like, that's it. That's him. That's the Messiah. That's the Lamb of God. And of course, this is super important to the people at the time, because as they've said, or they say in this episode a handful of times, this is the person that they've been praying for their entire lives and for like generations. Like, they've been praying for the return or for the coming of the Messiah, right? And like Andrew is pumped because he saw him, like he's here.
Mhm.
And of course, it doesn't help his case that like he saw, like he was told that this was the Messiah from John the Baptizer, who Simon then calls creepy John.
Bug eating John, I think, is another thing I heard
Yeah,
him say. That
he
your bug
says,
eating friend.
what's he I forget exactly what he says, but basically he's like, oh great, I'm supposed to be excited because creepy John pointed to some guy, like pretty much. But I of this episode, that scene might be my favorite just because, you know, like we've all been, I think, in Simon's position in this at this point of
Mhm.
the episode, right? Where we were in like way over our heads, like and as a believer, like I've been in this position where uh I've I've forgotten like who it is I follow, and I've forgotten that and I am actually in the process of learning right now that um like Jesus already gave us and provided like everything that I need. Like when he this is going outside the episode. Here's a little sermon from Mike. Okay, sorry, but you're gonna have to listen. You have no choice unless you push stop, which I implore you, please don't. That would hurt my feelings. um, but something I'm learning right now, which I guess I never really thought of before. But like when Jesus, when he came and when he died on the cross, when he bore the stripes, you know, in the crucifixion there, like those stripes paid for everything that we would ever need. Like at that moment, Jesus provided healing, he provided, you know, blessings, he provided like literal things, like everyday things that we need. Like God, when he created, like I'm struggling to get this out because believe
Mhm.
it or not, I'm not a preacher. So like um this is not my forte. But like so when God created everything, right? Like
In the beginning.
he knew the end game when he created everything, right? So it's not like he created man and then he created like, oh crap, I forgot Adam needs to eat. Like here's like an apple. Oh, you're hungry? Oh, here's like a watermelon, you know, like he created everything and then he created Adam. And Adam at that point had everything that he would ever need. And the way God created creation, like creation is sustaining, right? Like
Mhm.
food continues to grow if we plant it, like animals continue to reproduce, and like we have livestock so we can eat meat and hunt. And so like I guess what I'm trying to say is like God had all of our needs in mind when he created us, right? So in a position like Simon where he's in over his head, he thinks he has to do it all himself. He doesn't know like how he's going to get what he needs. Like I just got to take a step back and remember like God's already given us everything that we need. Like Jesus already paid the price and gave us everything that we would ever need. We
Mhm.
just have to like have that faith to receive it and believe that he will provide it for us, right? Um but anyways,
No, but that's good. No, I like that. I mean, I also it reminds me of I'm watching as you have like Simon actually struggling in a certain circumstance here. And I also like think back on it turns out when you make stuff on faith and you post it on social media, there's a lot of people that leave just ridiculous comments and like, and you know, just I can't, I'm not even gonna get into all the things. At least like there was a few that I'm like, all right, you know, that actually had some substance. But like well, a lot of them didn't. But no, it reminds me of like, I think sometimes we also think like, I think ahead of like Jesus and where we're going to eventually go into this, like he literally prayed saying like, if you will take it from me, you know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes like I struggled so much with these types of things because I'm like, well, why did I have the childhood I had? And then other friends didn't. And like, you know what I mean? You get in those instances and like, you're like, but what I realized later on is that like, he does give us what we need. I just think sometimes we have a misconception of what we actually need. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I think the line, because the whole time you were talking about that, I was thinking about the post that I had of like, it was like, I'll just bring it out. It was on my comments on one of our postings. And it was like, well, I'm sure believers were in Auschwitz when they died and stuff like, and it's just like, you know, I, and it's like, great, man, you brought up like the issue of evil. Like, yes, it's one of the,
Yeah.
it's a very hard problem, or the problem of evil or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I was thinking about that whole time that you were saying that. And I think sometimes it's those needs. And so
Yeah.
like this,
and like nobody knows the like how God like truly functions, right? Like we're just humans, like we can't comprehend the
vastness.
being of God, right? And like his process. And because if we did, we would be God, right? I mean, like it's just you can't comprehend how he works. And as we come and have revelations like this, as we learn and unpack, have encounters with Jesus, have encounters with the Holy Spirit, like and things are revealed to us, like we'll never fully understand. Like to that comment, yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of believers.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
do I know
millions of
why that
people. Yeah.
happened? No.
Well, yeah, actually we do, because
I
there
mean,
was
I know
somebody
why
that
it
was,
happened,
you
but
know,
like,
and that's it.
yeah, but like, why would God allow that to happen? Not to completely derail this episode.
No, yeah,
I
but
have no idea, and I can't even pretend to try to explain it to you.
exactly. And like, and like when people do that, like the dude seems to like have the answers, and it's like, man, you know how many debates have been about this topic, like, and how many, like, there's no consensus now. There's always going to be a divide on this answer. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so to bring this back to like Peter, is that like his needs in this moment like aren't being met, and like
Mhm.
how you were kind of talking, and he's just like scoffing, is that how he's scoffing at it?
Yeah,
And like
it's a good word.
um actually when we were in this siege, it reminds me of like times like you'd hear like, I don't know, growing up as a non-believer, I'd hear like, I don't know, some lady in a grocery store, and she'd be like, that person needs Jesus. And like my eyes would just roll it over so much. And it was just because I you know, you're just kind of like, dude, whatever, man, like
Yeah.
just stop.
Well, and like
And you know,
even now, like I've
oh
had
yeah, well
times where
yeah,
I'm like,
there's cringy.
okay, like,
That didn't have to do with anything, but sure.
like here, I'm trying to think of an
A
exact
good egg,
example.
yeah.
Like we almost had to replace our furnace like a month ago, which would have been like $3,000. And I don't have $3,000 laying around. And the guy who we have do that stuff, like he works for a heating and cooling company, but he does this stuff on the side for cheaper, like after he's done working. And that's how we use him because, not a millionaire. The problem with that is he doesn't take cards because he's doing this on the side. So like
Mhm.
cash or check, that's your options. Well, guess who doesn't have $3,000 laying around to replace the furnace? This guy. So like I'm what 15 years into my walk with God. Um, been through a lot in my life, but in that moment, I'm like, great. Like, what am I gonna have to sell? Like, what am I gonna have to do to like come up with scrounge up money for this? Completely like forgetting to, I don't know, call upon my provider, right? To seek Jesus in that moment, to walk in faith, knowing that he will provide one way or the other. It might not be $3,000 in a new furnace. It might be him, which what happened, finding that it was actually, uh, two parts in my furnace that could be replaced instead of replacing the whole thing. But you get in those moments like Simon where you have someone like Andrew being like, "Yeah, the Messiah is here. Like, this is all amazing. The person we've been praying for is finally here. Like, the person who can save us." Like, literally, Andrew says, "We're saved." And then you have me and Simon, and I'm sure you at points in your life where you're just like, "That's not what I want to hear right now." Like, I
Yeah.
have this mountain in front of me. Like, I don't. That doesn't help me. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I need. Um, but all that to say that last 10 minutes, I completely relate with Simon in this moment because I've been there a dozen times.
And I even relate more as he progresses in this episode because he just like spirals. Like
Yeah.
it's like this. I laugh because I'm like thinking about all the times in my life I've spiraled, but like he really does just spiral. And it's like so much so that like I'm watching him like I mean I guess we could just what's the next scene here? Um
He has like Matthew is terribly spying on Andrew and
oh yeah,
Simon.
terrible. Yeah, that's a good word, terribly, because he's like this
He's
like
just literally standing in the middle of the road
uh just
with
looking
his
at it.
journal.
Zero social awareness, just
He sees
yeah.
Andrew. I love this part too because Andrew sees him and he's just like, "What are you doing, Matthew? Like, I could totally see you." And Matthew is just like looking around, and then he like tries to walk out from behind the like small tree he's hiding behind, and then he's just like standing in the middle of the road. And then he like sees Simon, and instead of hiding, he just like walks up to Simon, and he's taking notes on Simon from like 5 feet away from him in the middle of the road. I love it. So
He's
great.
like, "You're a little off, aren't you?" Um, but
Um,
yeah, and then after this, in he the next scene is him just like he's just spiraling. He's like, "I need to do what I can do. Like, I just need to work hard." And I mean, I think that's what it is. It's like he's like, "I have to work harder. I'm not doing enough." Like he's already fishing all day and nights, and now he's going out on his date. What's supposed to be a day of or I don't know if this is Shabbat. I think he's just going out.
yeah, I think there's
Um,
like 3
I
days. I think he says because Matthew hits him with like, "Oh yeah, Quintus is coming like
yeah, yeah,
tomorrow," and he's like,
yeah,
"What? Shabbat's not for like 3 days or something." He's
yeah,
like, "No, he's coming now."
yeah, he's coming now, and and so like I don't even know if he's completely in the wrong. I think when you're cornered, he's cornered right now. He's cornered. He's got himself into a mess, and now he's like, I have to fix this. So he's going out and working harder and doing what he can. And like I feel like I can totally relate to that. I mean, I feel like any times I've ever been in any like financial or just anything like that, you're like, okay, well, I'm already working 60 hours. I can squeeze in 15 more hours. Or you know what I mean? Like some ridiculous statement. And then you burn yourself out. And then in the end, really what you did didn't really affect it. And it just all worked out regardless. Call it Jesus, call it not. Like it just it worked out or it didn't, right?
Mhm.
And the amount of like spiraling of whatever it is didn't really change the situation.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that's where he's at. I'm watching him right now as he's hanging off a boat with a torch in the middle of the night and a net that's catching no fish. So no, they did a really good job at I feel like we really haven't talked much about like the theatricalness of it or whatever you want to say, but I think they did really good. And here's Matthew sitting on the side with his dog, just eating some popcorn, watching.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I like the descent into madness out on the
mhm,
boat in the middle of the night. I do like the use of cuts and like the um jagged scene transition, like edit transitions. I mean, they're all on the boat, but like I'm always a fan of like the
yeah,
quick like snap into another scene in the same area of a man completely breaking down. But yeah, Simon's losing it. He's realizing that basically he has this night to catch a ton of fish to pay off his debt, or else, best case scenario, he's going to prison. Worst case scenario, he's probably going to die. Um,
yeah,
Everything's going to be taken from him. Um, but he's in that moment where he's like so desperate. No, nothing. He's getting no results, and he's just like, what? Like, I've been like faithful, a faithful follower of you, God. I've been a faithful servant. I've prayed, I've worshiped, I've thanked you, and like this is what I get. Like nothing. You're like, where
uh-huh.
are you in my time of need? Like the biggest need I've had in my life. Like where are you? And I also feel like we can all relate in moments like that. Everyone's had one of those moments. I would have to imagine.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I feel like even in like real deep moments, like with you, you get a lot of these like where people die in your life, this and that, and then like this is like a very fair reaction, and it's probably why a lot of people walk away from their faith, and
Yeah.
or at least even at the very least question it. And I mean, I think it's a fair thing to question it with these types of things. Like I feel like it's a good question, to ask. Like when you're desperate, like when he's sitting here yelling up, he's talking like you brought us out of Egypt for what, dude? Like for what? Like
Yeah.
for us to do this, and now like we're getting crushed by Rome. And to some extent, like you look at it and you're like, well, Peter, like you didn't do this or you didn't do
Yeah.
that. Or you're being
Like some
Peter,
of it might
but
have been avoidable, but also some
but
of it
you're being
probably wasn't.
oppressed
Yeah, yeah.
by a bunch of you know I
Big old
guess you would,
jerks.
yeah, you'd say they're democratic, but they're not. It's tyrants, and you know what I mean. So like it's just, I don't know, it's yeah, so you look at it and you really like start to feel for him. You're like, all right. And then I do love the redemption of like the people that he was going to turn in, picks him
Yeah.
up on the boat.
Yeah, Big
And
Z and
Big
James and
Z,
John,
yeah,
they come
yeah,
over, and they're like, "Hey, we'll
yep,
help
and
you
his
out, I
and
guess."
Andrew. And so it's 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 good. I really liked the spiraling of Peter. I think it's the most I think that's probably why this is my favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
Um
I also like the fact that, even though they came, they still caught 0 fish.
yeah, no, literally like
Like, not
zero.
even 1. Not even, like, 3 fish. It's not like they had, like, a really small catch that clearly wasn't gonna be able to pay off the debt. It's like, no, they literally
No
caught 0
bluegill or
fish all night.
minnow.
They, have a terrible night, catch nothing, come to shore. As they're coming to shore, they see a man teaching in front of a crowd there on the shore. Turns out it's Jesus. And here is kind of obviously another really cool moment. Um, another like Mary Magdalene moment from episode 1, where Jesus obviously is in the exact place that he knows he needs to be. He knows exactly who's out on the water, and he knows exactly what Simon needs. And it's so cool to see this scene play out where, he's teaching these people. He asks Simon and Andrew if he can stand in their boat to teach, because people are having a hard time hearing. And for some reason, backing further away from the crowd would make it easier for them to hear. Sorry, nitpicking the logistics of this whole scene here and reasoning of getting on the boat. But nonetheless, he gets on the boat, takes some convincing from Simon. Andrew immediately recognizes that this is Jesus. So he's like, "Hey, Simon, this is the guy that I was telling you about. This is the Messiah." And Simon's still kind of hesitant. But basically, Jesus teaches a parable about fishing and how heaven is going to be like the sorting of fish here, like at the end of the age. Angels will come down and they'll sort, the good from the bad, and much like the fishermen do, the good fish go in the barrel and the bad get tossed. That's what will come here at the end of the age, and the crowd disperses, and before he leaves, he has, Simon has an encounter with Jesus, which was really cool. You want to go through what happens here with Simon?
Yeah, no, I mean, he literally is like, so he's like, all right, I gotta go. I think he said I gotta go. And he's like, just stay. Jesus tells Peter, just stay for a little bit. And I want to make one little side note. I thought this was really cool. You kind of see Matthew still sitting on the beach, just still being a creep, just sitting there, just with him and his dog, watching, Simon Peter all night. And when they came up on the boat, Jesus was teaching the parable of the seed that fallen on soil. And so I was wondering why they had Matthew in this scene, and it looks, and this parable is in Matthew. So I thought that was
makes
clever.
sense.
So I was like, I just looked that up.
Because, of course, Quintus in dialogue with Matthew earlier in the episode asks him, can you write? I need you to take account and write down every little detail, which I thought was funny because, he ends up
that's good. And I didn't
anyway.
even piece what you just said until now. So that's good. Yeah, no. So I thought that was pretty clever of them to put Matthew in this scene and have them teaching. I was like, why did they choose the parable of the seed right there? And so interesting. But so we have Simon Peter. He's just being Simon Peter. He's looking at there and just doubting, scoffing, and he asked him, so he gets on the boat, and Jesus is teaching, from the boat so that it can hear. And he's like, he's like doing what every preacher does, and he's using people as his props there on stage. And he's like, so what is this thing? And Peter's like, it's a net for catching fish. And, and so he talks about just, catching fish and what it'll be like at the end of the age. And so he's like, I have some business to attend to. And he basically tells Peter, I'm trying to think of what he actually tells him when he do you remember what he says?
Not off the top of my head, no.
He tells him to go put that down for the catch a little farther out. And he's like, I don't have an issue with that, but like, we've been doing this all night. This is not, so he tells him to go out there and cast it out. So he casts out the net, and the boat, is essentially like tipping. And so there's just so many fish, and it, it gets into that like that
Yeah.
fun music that's like, there's thousands of fish, and so
Yeah,
um
it's pretty cool. I love it though because like they're literally, I keep saying literally, but their boats are beached. They're on shore basically. Like, and Jesus is like, "Yeah, throw your net in. You'll catch some fish
yeah,
here."
go out there like
And
50 feet, and you'll I'm
Simon's just
looking
like,
at it now, that's
they
like a
don't
whole
even go
boat.
off the shore. That's the thing. Like they're still on
Oh,
the
you're
shore,
right.
and like and Jesus is
I didn't
like,
even pick up on that.
he's
They
like,
haven't even moved out.
yeah, he's like, just cast your net, and
Throw it
Simon's
out,
like
dude.
looking at him like he's an idiot. Like, I've been fishing all night and I'm on shore. Like, why? Why would I do this?
Mhm.
He's like, come on, and Andrew's like, really, come on, dude. He's the Messiah. Um, but yeah, he casts the net, and then we get a miracle. Simon gets his miracle. And it's cool because you know, his wife, I forget her name. Apologies. But earlier in the episode, she talks about faith. Where's your faith? And in this moment, uh, Simon like reluctantly listens to Jesus, right? And I think that it's possible. This is just my point of view. I think it's possible to, well, maybe it's not. Is it possible to have faith, act in faith, and still be a little reluctant? I don't think so. Now that I'm saying it out loud, because the reluctancy kind of could be the opposite, the counter of faith, right? Because oftentimes if you're being reluctant, you're not believing in what you're doing, right? Or you think what you're doing is not going to be fruitful or
No.
beneficial or successful. I don't know. That is my in real time thought process making any sense to you?
No, it is, and so I think it's a good observation, and what did the word use? Reluctancy? What word did you use?
Yeah, yeah. He was
Okay.
like, he like
Re
reluctantly
Yeah, and
obeyed.
are you saying that, like, to have faith is to have no doubt? Is that what you're like, is that,
Yeah, yeah, because aren't those opposites, right?
well,
Because if
they
you
they
have faith in something, you're believing in in whatever you're putting your faith in. But if you have doubts of what you're putting your faith in, isn't that counterproductive? Or is
I
it
don't think it
possible to
is.
doubt but
I
also have faith that you'll find your success or your in this case your miracle like Simon received?
I don't think it is, like, you know, contradicting there. I think that you need to be somewhat um reluctant towards things. So like I had my thoughts were going really good there for a moment. But n- um
maybe
I think there's
maybe
a
Go ahead. I don't want
n-
you to lose your thoughts.
no, I
So
think there's a line between blind faith and reason. Like we're told to what is the love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your mind and all your soul, right?
mhm.
So like that means to have faith, but it's also to think, like to think through things. And to think is to, I don't want to say to think is to doubt, but in our scenario, it is. You have to, if you don't think, you're just going to do, and you're not going to, like, for instance, you got Peter that is just acting out of being scared early on, or out of being cornered into a wall, and so he lost faith there. But like at the same time, like you need to be able to think and doubt things to have the right faith. Because what if
Yeah.
it's not a faith problem? What if it's like how I mentioned earlier about you just need to get your needs right, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it.
Well, and now that we're talking about this, I don't think Simon cast his net with any faith, because through the whole episode, he's clearly l- at at this point, like, kind of lost all faith. You know, taking
Mhm,
into account the spiral out in the boat in the middle of the night. But I think what this is kind of showing here, at least what I'm taking away from it, as we're like in in real time sorting out the thoughts in
mhm.
my brain, which is a fun exercise and probably
Yeah.
is entertaining to listen to, because
No,
you guys,
this
everyone's
is what
probably
it's all
screaming
about,
at their
man.
phone and like, "You idiot, that's not what." But maybe it's not, this isn't a faith teaching moment. Maybe this is a, sometimes, even when you have no faith, and even when you think that you've, like, done everything possible, like, sometimes all it takes is obedience,
Mm,
right? Like, I don't think Simon, well, I know Simon didn't think he was going to catch anything throwing his net there. So I don't think he threw his net believing in faith that he was going to reap a bountiful catch. I don't think he thought he was going to catch a single fish, much like he had the last 8 hours he was on the water. But in obedience, he heard what Jesus told him, and he followed through with what Jesus told him. And in that act of following the voice of God, he was blessed with a miracle that met his needs.
mm.
And in that moment, like, as they're, after they filled the boat full of fish, like, he falls on his knees in front of Jesus, and he basically, like, that's his literal come to Jesus moment where
Uh-huh.
and I think, I don't know exactly, I wish I would have wrote down what he says in this interaction here, but
I
I
have it.
think, okay, can you read it? Because I don't want to, like,
Yeah, he
say.
says, "My brother and the baptizer, they were trying to like tell me and
Mhm.
said, 'You are the Lamb of the God, yes? Or Lamb of God, yes?'" And um Jesus says, "I am." And um Peter says, "Depart from me. I am a sinful man. You don't know who I am and the things I've done." And Jesus says, "Don't be afraid, Simon." And he says, "I'm sorry. We've waited for you for so long. We've believed, but my faith, I'm sorry." And so,
Okay, okay, that's what I was hoping. So, like, at this moment, like, he's kind of admitting, like,
mhm,
my faith, I'm sorry, like, like, it had been lost, it had been diminished, but in this act of obedience and then being blessed, like, it restored his faith, right?
yeah,
He realizes who this is, and, like, I don't know, it was just, I'm glad we had this, like, real time little thought, like, exercise, because I literally learned something in the midst of figuring that out. And
yeah,
I just think that's a really cool lesson, because um you know, I mean, we've all been in Simon's shoes, as we've talked about, but, like, it's cool that, like, sometimes it doesn't even take faith. Like, sometimes it just takes obedience, like,
mhm.
hearing, like, again, I'm so sorry that I'm using the word literal so much, but, like, Simon is literally hearing the voice of Jesus, the voice of God, tell him to do something. He does it and is blessed. So, like, when we hear God speak to us, when we feel the Holy Spirit, like, lead us, like, there is blessing and provision in obedience. And then, as those things happen, as you receive miracles, as you receive provision and as you receive blessings, like that just builds your faith. And it's just, I don't know, it's a cool like circle.
Yeah, and what I like about this too is as soon as he puts down his lack of faith, he realizes that there's something greater on the other side of that. And that's I think the key takeaway for me with this is like, I think about, I don't know if most people don't know the stories, but like the story of Gideon in the Old Testament. He was part of one of the judges period of time. And so literally his whole story was like God stripping him down to go fight like the Midianites.
Mhm.
And I know I'm kind of jumping topics here, but the point here is like, he's like, well, I need more men. And God's like, no, you don't. Just take, he's like, actually, you need less men. And so take all these people down to the river and like have them drink from the river. And the people that stick their head down like a dog, and then there's going to be some people that like lift up the water with their hands, right? And so he gets rid of like, basically starts out with like, I don't know, I can't remember the numbers. It's like 100,000 men and gets down to like 20,000 or 5,000 or some ridiculous number. And then he beats like what he was first outnumbered with the few people. But the point here is like, he was stripping down that faith, not stripping down the faith, but stripping down that lack of faith to trust that like there is something greater on the other side. And it's actually like, you have more, what a word I want to use here. You don't, I can't think of how I want to word this.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
Just
I'm only going to do this
ramble
once a
until it
podcast.
comes out. Yeah.
I usually do this once a podcast. So here's my moment. I just think that it's that, like I just mentioned, it's the other side of it. And getting to that other side is like, hey, you know what? Drop the lack of everything and like just trust. And as soon as we get to this point, like we can finally move on with where we need to go. Cause this is where he calls him, right? Is that what? Yeah.
Yeah. He basically
it's the next
like
said, lift up your,
he's basically just like, what can I do? Like, thank you. What can I do to repay you? And he just like,
and he says, lift up your head, fisherman. I don't know why I said that weird. Oh man. What do you want from me? And he said, follow me. Yeah. And so that was actually my first blog post, follow me. I was thinking a lot about the different times he said it through the Bible, but like, yeah. And just the turning point of this is like, I feel like, I don't know, have you ever been there? Like, you know, you work a job.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
That's how you got that nice Reptar hoodie. Yeah, you could save.
Yes,
But
this hoodie rules, by the way.
Yes, it does. Gotta love Tommy Picks.
Indeed.
Oh man. I've sidetracked myself. Where was I going? Oh, where you know, you get to this point where I feel like you burn out on everything, and then you have this like these moments where you're stripped down, and then you get like this renewal of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it faith, but like something, you know, I'm looking at Peter here and I love the like, it's just a 180. This dude is smiling, he's cheesing it. He's just
his zeal has been restored.
Demeanor is exactly. There's something that was like he was so empty, and it's just like in an instant, it's just you're full. And I don't know, I that's literally like, I don't know how else to put it. Like we just said on the one episode, like I was one way and now I'm different. Like it's literally that way. And it's, call it cheesy, call it cliche, call it whatever you want to call it. But like, that is what, like, you think you have this movement of people that follow this dude named Jesus that lived over 2,000 years ago. And like there's a real moment that happens that causes people to, it's not indoctrination as a child. It's not that, like, there's real, like, transformation that happens, and that's why people continue to follow this guy
Mhm.
years, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I just see it all over, and that's my experience with it. Is yours, did you feel that way, or like, was it like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, and, like, I still don't really know how to explain what that moment was like.
Yeah, I can
Um,
envision it.
yeah, I mean, like, I remember it exactly,
Mhm.
um, and, like, I think we talked about it on episode 0, so go listen. Uh, yeah, it's just, like, I don't know, sometimes the easiest way to explain things is the simplest, and it's just like Mary said in episode 1 or 2, yeah, it was episode 2. I was one
Mhm.
way, now I'm completely different, and the thing that happened in between was him.
Mhm.
That's literally the best way you can put it,
Eh,
and it sounds silly, but
no, it does, because there's no reason to it,
yeah.
and, like, actually, like, reasoning to it, and there will be none, and I think that right there is, like, the definition of faith, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, not blind faith, not this, like, I'm just gonna go because I gotta go, or whatever. It's just this, like, transformation just happened. I cannot explain it at
Mhm.
all. I don't know how to, and I'm I have the faith to do whatever. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's good. So
Fish or
here yeah.
nothing. You got bigger things ahead of you.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jesus asks Simon to follow him. Also on the scene, Andrew is asked. He also calls, Big James and John. Um, and
Nice.
also, I don't know if you noticed, I'm sure you did, because they focus on these people, 2 or 3 times and during this scene on the beach here, but, um, Thaddeus and the other James, as well as Mary Magdalene, are a part of the crowd being taught here on the beach.
Are they?
Um, yeah. So, we have those 3 in the crowd. Matthew is watching and documenting this all unfolding, like, from behind the bush with his dog, and we have Simon, Andrew, Big James, and John being asked to follow Jesus here. So it's like, bam, big chunk of the disciples all in one place, in this scene, which is really cool.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's pretty much the end of Simon's arc in this episode, which is the majority of the episode. We also have, um, I think the only other arc is Nicodemus and his learning of John the Baptizer.
Mhm. And which is how it says ends.
Yeah, which basically earlier on in the episode, there's a meeting of the Pharisees, and this is one of those moments where I'm it's a borderline cheese where I was like, okay, you're a little too on the nose here. But basically, Nicodemus is talking with his other fellow Pharisees, or I shouldn't say fellow, his minion Pharisees, his underlings, and they're talking about this,
Minions.
yeah, this guy out, in the river, like baptizing people and forgiving them of their sins and all this
Eating
stuff.
locusts.
Yeah, and and the one is like, and you know what's the worst? He says we're snakes, and they're like, what? Us, the Pharisees, the religious leaders? And I'm like,
That's, yeah, yeah.
really? Like, come on, we could have toned down a little bit there. We kind of understand that it's a group of Pharisees who are at this time religious leaders. You don't have to literally spell it out for us. I will not say literally another time tonight or on future episodes. I've overused that word tonight, and I apologize.
Really, I literally have no, I mean, that's that's a
You're the worst. But yeah, so here we're introduced to this John the Baptizer character, because I want to say this happens before Andrew comes running from Jerusalem, talking about seeing Jesus for the first time. If it didn't happen before, whatever. We're starting to hear rumblings of this John the Baptizer. The next scene with Nicodemus, he's eating dinner with his wife and breaks the news to her, like, she's like, yeah, this couldn't have been going any better, if we like planned it all ourselves or whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's been pretty rad. I guess we'll stay here, maybe a fortnight or two or whatever. And then, like, under his breath, he's like, oh, or until my research is completed. And she's like, excuse me, you can't complete your research in Jerusalem? And he's like, well, he pulls like the man card in society back then. He's like, it's been settled. We're gonna stay until but yeah, during this dinner, it's interrupted by a knock at the door, and it's one of his underlings basically saying, yeah, that crazy Shmuel guy, he had that John the Baptizer arrested. And Nicodemus is like, but did he really do anything? He's like, well, no. And he's like, okay, can I question him? So the third and final scene with Nicodemus involving John the Baptizer is at the very end of the episode. And Nicodemus goes into the cell with John and basically is like, are you the one they call John the Baptizer? And John
the voiceover series.
Yeah, that's great. I'm just basically reenacting the episode. You're welcome.
I think he's got more of a high pitched.
That's true. But I don't like it, so I made it savory. And you know what, guys? If you've never listened to Showboys, or if you've never listened to a companion series that I've been on for Showboys, this is how recaps go. I just basically, in my own language, recap the scenes, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's cringy. Probably all the time it's annoying, but this is what you're gonna get. But anyways, old scraggly, hairy John walks up to the bars, which are just wood, tree branches, and
bugs sticking out his teeth.
Yeah, he's got like this real crazy eye look on him too. Did you notice that? Like, he's borderline Forrest Whitaker eye over there. He's like, and he's like, yeah. And Nicodemus is like, I want to ask you some questions about miracles. And then he gets this weird, crazy John the Baptizer smile, and the episode ends. Yeah. Overall, you liked this episode?
I did. I like Peter's story. I like his just spiraling and his just complete 180. And I mean, that seems to be just what we're experiencing. I mean, we have Mary Magdalene that's this way. Now you have Simon Peter.
Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to visually show like how repentance works.
Yeah, and like comparison to like the Pharisees would give you like that kind of style is like you should feel shame over this, and you need to make up for this, and this is like like turn around, like repent is to turn, and
I feel like that word has such a bad rap. Like,
it has so many connotations to it that bad, and
find that word dirty. But like you just said, like,
it's to turn, dude.
It's just literally like to repent means you were going this way, and instead go this way. Like, just turn from what you're doing and don't do it anymore.
Exactly. And so I don't know. I loved this episode. It was such a good one. I just think that it's a good, like you said, they're repenting. It's showing them how they're doing that. I think it's just, it's good. I'm super excited about some of the episodes that are coming up. I try not to watch ahead. Again, I really do. Sometimes the old TV just doesn't turn off and goes on to the next episode.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, but
Yeah. But yeah, I'm excited for what is to come. I think, much like last week, I think much like every episode we've done so far, I've grown to like the episode more after doing this.
yeah,
Not that I didn't like the episodes before, but I didn't have the appreciation for this episode until I was able to
process it.
think through it out
Mhm.
loud with you guys. And now I really I enjoy this episode a lot.
This is probably my favorite podcast episode that we've done too. So
Yeah, it's a good one. We kind of got into a few
into
things there.
yeah, I mean we derailed a few times, but
Eh,
you know,
it happens.
what do you do? Just turn it on 1.5 speed or something to make up
Yeah,
for it. And
exactly. I will say one final thing, and then we'll just
Mhm.
wrap up. When you were talking about Simon's, again, I keep calling him Simon just because he hasn't been called Peter yet in the episode. But when you say Peter, when I say Simon, we're talking about the same guy.
Yeah, Simon Peter.
Yes. When you were talking about him, like the restoration of his zeal or whatever, I use the word zeal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
He,
not my word.
basically was empty and is now full.
Oh,
and
yeah,
his passion, his joy has kind of been restored. It makes me think of my favorite King's Kaleidoscope song. Probably, yeah, it's definitely my favorite. It gets me every time. Verge of Tears by
Mike
the end
cries a lot.
every time.
if
I
you
do.
didn't know
I'm a
that.
big sad guy. But no, they have an amazing song. It's actually 3 songs, but meant to be one song played continuously. So I don't know why they just didn't make it one track. I'm getting in the weeds here, but it's called The Rush, and it describes literally that. Like, it takes you through the process of being someone who's lost their zeal, and then like coming to the realization and restoration of that
Mhm.
zeal. And dude, it gets me every time. I love it. It's an amazing song. Go listen to it. The Rush by King's Kaleidoscope.
Mm,
Um,
there you go.
that being said, thank you guys for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, because we do post YouTube videos, at least Showboys podcast has a companion series playlist for The Chosen on our YouTube channel. Please hit the subscribe button and let us know what you thought in the comments. If you are listening to the audio version, thank you. We have a video version if that interests you. If not, we appreciate you listening to the audio version. Please like and rate and follow, review, etc. on your listening platform of choice. We are posting this on all of Showboys audio and YouTube channel, and also on the Nerdy Bible audio platforms, and
Yep.
maybe video eventually. Or
Yes, it is coming.
okay,
It
cool.
is coming.
So basically, if you can't find this, I mean, you probably can't because we're small content creators, but we're making it like massively available on a lot of platforms and 2 different like sources. So
Yep.
you can listen to this pretty much anywhere. That's what we're getting at.
And there's you got a lot of good geeky, nerdy content on your site. I got some on mine.
Yes.
And so there's, you don't have to just come for the Jesus stuff. You can come for all the
well,
things.
I mean, like your thing is kind of
Well,
Jesus stuff.
yeah, but I'm also talking. Yeah, you're right. Well, I do want to do a lot of series on like science and stuff. So I want to create.
I'm excited about your new thing coming up.
Yeah, that's exciting. I also have like a lot of visions for like animations and stuff, and like so I'm trying to create well-rounded people. Had good educated in all the areas.
Yeah.
So, and and so like I also enjoy video games and other things like that too. So,
yes.
And you guys do a lot of that stuff on your site.
Of course, yeah. If you're listening
it's
to
a good
this,
looking website.
Well, thank you. The guy who did it is pretty great. If you're listening and you are not familiar with Showboys, we are, yes, like James said, we're kind of like a nerd culture catch-all that kind of focuses on film and gaming. But we talk about other stuff. We talk about music, talk about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
We have a website, showboysmedia.com. You can go over there, check out all of our stuff. We have, our episodes on the website. We have a gaming page with all of our streaming partners. We also are doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that's been super fun, and we have a whole section of our website dedicated to that. Go check it out. And we also have Discord you can join. That'll be a fun time. But yeah, check out thenerdybible.com. Check out showboysmedia.com. Thank you for listening, and really looking forward to episode 5 next week. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.
Shalom.
Bye.